Peoples of the worldwide federated internet. What's good? Yo, what up, what up, what up? Yes, thank you. Add a little spice. So today I was gonna discuss a couple different issues, but I switched gears. As I said before, sometimes I'm reading my Bible, studying some things, and there's some stuff I'd like to go over. And a lot of times there's things I don't understand. And God will just sit me down like, nah, bruh, go ahead and sit this one out. You don't understand this at all. Not that I'm saying I'm 100% right about all other things I've said, but if I say so, if I'm unsure about something, I'm gonna just pass on it. And there's several different things I've been studying through. One thing I've been studying through, not necessarily a doctrinal issue, but more historical, is I'm going through the book of Jonah, and there's some historical things that are very interesting about that book. Very interesting. And I'm ashamed about how much I did not know about biblical geography. I'll admit it, right? I am definitely no geography scholar, but did you know that Nineveh was the seat of the Assyrian Empire, not to be confused with the Assyrian Empire, Nineveh. And did you also know that Nineveh was in Mosul, Iraq? I actually did not know that, to my shame. And did you also know, and I want to say ISIS destroyed it a few years back, there was actually a shrine in the city of Nineveh to Jonah. Interesting things that you might not have known. But there's some things I want to discuss through the book of Jonah. But like I said, I haven't flushed all that out yet. I'm doing a bunch of reading about Assyrian kings and some other different stuff, because it's kind of what I've seen in the book of Jonah historically is wild, because I never paid attention to any of this stuff before. And it's funny how if you start reading your Bible and going over something and then go to read something else, then go to watch a video, you get on all kind of tangents. And I'm just like, man, I didn't know any of this stuff. Anyway, like I said, I got that on the back burner right now, because I'm kind of still jotting down some notes, getting some stuff in order, making sure I know what I'm talking about. But there is some, I guess, social topics that have kind of been on my mind the past couple days. One of those things being the situation we have going on with police right now. A lot going on in the news, a lot going back and forth, a lot of people saying a lot of things about cops, another police shooting. I'm not really gonna, I'm trying my best, not trying my best, I'm really not talking about a lot of these police shootings, because I'm not an investigator. I don't have all of the information. I don't know everything that happened. I wasn't there. I'm not taking eyewitness testimonies. That's not my job. Now, that's not to say that you can't comment on some of these things, because there are people that really manage to gather a lot of information. And I could probably do the same thing, honestly, if I really wanted to gather information on some of these things. But the problem I'm seeing is people jumping to conclusions, both for and against cops. Excuse me. And I think both situations really are bad, because you jump to the aid of a cop, then you find out, oh no, X, Y, and Z happened and they were wrong. Then you jump down to throw the cops like, y'all shouldn't have done this. Y'all shouldn't have done this. And then you find out more information and you're like, oh, well, I was wrong. So I try to stay away from that stuff. But I want to talk about the issue of policing in general. I think sometimes we look at police as though they are these benevolent people who, when they put on a badge, they somehow shed their humanity. And I honestly think that's a problem. And that's not to say that police officers should not be held to a higher standard than the average person when it comes to the law. I would not disagree with that, but I think we're asking police to be held to an inhuman standard. A lot of people think that the solution for policing is to defund the police, get rid of the police, and replace them with private police forces. And I've given some thought to that. I have different people I've spoken with that have brought that up and made some valid points, but I don't think that's the answer. And the reason I don't think that's the answer is because a private police force doesn't change one thing. And this is something that I'm shocked at times when I see Christians that hold views without considering sin, right? So we as believers believe all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, right? None of us walking around here is without sin. So with that being said, knowing that the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked above all, with that in consideration, I understand the uniqueness of having a private police force, and I understand that on the surface, it seems like that solves a problem. I understand that on the surface, it appears as though that this is the fix of all, but that is to assume that these people will somehow be all good and all honorable at all times. Just because you hand this, or just because you delegate this responsibility to a private organization and they have a financial gain, does not mean they won't do evil things and won't do anything wrong. Have you seen corporate America? Look, I'm a capitalist to the core. I love the fact that in this country, I can go work, I can work hard, and I honestly can make as much money as my brain gives me the capacity to formulate ideas to accumulate, if that makes sense. And I appreciate that. But to assume that somehow handing the police force to a private organization would fix all of the issues, no, I honestly think there would be more corruption in a different way, and I do not think you would get rid of police brutality. Yeah, there is an argument to be made that, well, if this private company has the police force, then they are more inclined to do things right because they don't want to lose the contract. We can go with that. There's still going to be corruption, still going to be police brutality. You'll never get away from that. I think the thing that nobody's, or many people are not talking about when dealing with the issue of police brutality is they're not talking about what I think is the real issue. The real issue is not necessarily a black issue. I think the real issue is an over-policing issue, and I've mentioned that before, but I kind of went on a long tangent. I know. I get that way sometimes. My mind races and there's so much going on. But so that's what I was getting back to. So holding police officers to an inhuman standard. If you were a police officer, and let's say you are new, right? new to the force. Let's say you come from Montana, and let's say you're in a bigger city. Let's say you moved from Montana to Miami. You decided to become a police officer. Miami's a big city. There's a lot going on, a lot of gang activity, a lot of drug activity. You're not used to this. And let's say as you go into these different impoverished neighborhoods, right? Doesn't really have to be black or white or Hispanic, just impoverished neighborhoods. It doesn't matter. On a day-to-day basis, you see, let's say you've done a job, let's say you're on a job 6 years, and on a day-to-day basis, you see people stealing from each other, people talking about each other, people killing each other. Nobody cares about the community. Nobody cares about anybody else in the community. Men don't care about protecting women and children. Violence is rampant. And there's danger at every corner. Now, you're a police officer. Again, not giving police officers a pass. Yes, police officers should be held to a higher standard. But at what point do you say, all right, these guys are still human, right? So let's say you see this on a regular basis, Let's say you see people who dress a certain way always act a certain way. Let's say every time you go into a situation, you're called in to a violent situation, all the people there are dressed a certain way, look a certain way, and talk a certain way. Every time. Now, there's a traffic stop. You see the person in this car. They fit the description of what you have seen for 6 years. For 6 years, you've seen this. It hasn't changed. You don't think you're going to be a little tense? Come on, we got to keep it real. I'm not arguing that this is correct. I'm saying this is human. And I think that we attempt to remove that humanity from police officers as though they're these benevolent beings that when they put on that badge, somehow they become sinless. Come on, man. That's not what it is. I think that's a false standard that we're putting on police officers. And I'm not saying that in a lot of situations where police officers do grimy things, I'm not saying those situations are justified. I'm saying that there's some situations we look at and we judge police officers harshly without considering, well, what have these dudes seen on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, let's take a city like New York City, 8 million people. 8 million people. One of the most densely populated cities on the planet. I know, I was born and raised there, I could tell you. Just the things that I saw alone, right? Just a kid I was 18 when I left Brooklyn. Just the things I saw from the time I was 1 year old to the time I was 18, just what I saw alone was enough to make me trust no one. I had a group of friends, I had a tight circle, and my family, and those were the people I trusted. If I did not know you, I'm telling you right now, as a believer, I go to Brooklyn right now. I love people. I want to love my neighbor as myself. I want to get the gospel out. I want to be kind to people, but I don't trust no one. I go back to Brooklyn right now. I get on a block. I don't trust nobody. I don't know you. I don't trust you. It's the nature of the city. It's just being wise. Things move fast. I've said this before. When you grow up in a city like New York, you have two options. You are either going to learn how to read situations and people extremely quickly, or you're going to get got. Those are your only two options. You don't have any other options. You don't know who you can trust and who you can't trust, so you don't trust anyone. It's like being a soldier in Vietnam, right? If I was a soldier in Vietnam, I wouldn't trust nobody. I don't know which one of these people I can trust, who I can't trust, so therefore I trust no one. That's how it is in New York. Now, do you think that attitude changes when you put on a badge? We could all say, yeah, but you took the job and you understand. Yeah, I get all of that. Now let's talk about reality. Do you think putting on a badge is going to change that? No, it is not. So if I as a New Yorker, right? There was times, I'm telling you, I remember it was this one time I went to the Burger King around the corner. And now imagine, I'm gonna tell you this situation. Now imagine this situation and being a cop, right? I'm trying to remember, what was it on? Was it on the Conduit? Yeah, it was. So those of you who are from Brooklyn or know anything about New York, I lived on before I left Brooklyn. I lived on Autumn between Pickett and Belmont, right? So on Pickett Avenue, if you walk to the corner of Pickett Avenue and Autumn and made a right, there was like a psychiatric facility for people who are mentally disabled or whatever on that corner, and you made a right, you'd be going towards the Conduit or the Atlantic, where the Atlantic met the Conduit, and there was a Burger King down there. I can't remember the exact street the Burger King was on. So anyway, I went to that Burger King, whatever, got some food. For whatever reason, this is back during the era of payphones. I do not remember why I was using a payphone, but it was like a pack of 4 dudes. They were crossing. I'm trying to remember if I'm pretty sure it was the Conduit, because that's, like I said, that's where the Atlantic and the Conduit met. So they was crossing the highway. I saw them out the corner of my eye. Now, for those of you New Yorkers that are listening, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. Yo, my spidey sense was tingling. Crazy. I hung up the phone. Pew! I didn't run, but I was moving real quick because I already knew, this don't feel good. That's just me, random dude, born and raised in the city, understanding my environment. So now take a police officer, put a badge on him. Do you think somehow he's become a different kind of human because he's put on a badge? So imagine a police officer in a situation like that. Sense is heightened. I'm not giving a pass for a police officer doing something they shouldn't have done. But what I am saying is, I think sometimes we judge situations and we assume a person's motives, right? We assume, oh, they did that just because they a nasty cop. There are some nasty cops. Oh, they did that just because they're racist. There are some racist cops. But I think we assume people's motives a lot without thinking about the situation. Here's the next thing. When is there ever going to be a responsibility on us, the regular, normal people out here, to hold ourselves accountable and responsible? Right? And I'm not saying that, group responsibility. I'm not responsible for anybody else. I'm responsible for myself and my family, right? But what I'm saying is, hold ourselves responsible in that we understand what the situation is. We understand what we have to deal with. Thus, we understand what police officers have to deal with. So instead of jumping to conclusions every time something happens, you just fall back like, this doesn't look good, but I don't know what the situation was. How hard is it to say that? This don't look good at all, but I don't know the situation. We expect more of police officers than we would expect from anyone else. I could go into a whole nother tirade on that, but I'm just gonna let that die before I go into the weeds. But I honestly think we need to do some, like, let's So when I say we, let me specify that. In impoverished neighborhoods, right, in the hood, there really needs to be some reflection on, yo, okay, some police officers definitely are just gonna do what they're gonna do regardless of the environment. Right? They're just evil people, period. Some police officers are affected by the environment they're in. I think in the hood, there needs to be some reflection like, all right, let's look at these situations individually and let's look at what was going on. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of the police officers and say, if I was that guy, what would I have done? Another thing that's baffling to me, especially right now, given the climate of policing in the United States right now, and trust me when I tell you, I don't attach myself to any groups. I am a Christian. That is my group. My group is the Lord Jesus Christ. That's my group. So this is not Blue Lives Matter or any of that. I don't subscribe to none of that. I'm good. But recognizing the climate of policing or the climate as far as the attitude toward policing right now, let's give some consideration to that. Like when I hear people talking about like what's going on with Portland, and I listen to news, I listen to a lot of news about a lot of different things, but I hear people saying, oh man, the police officers, why are they not doing this or why are they not doing that? Or you look at what's happening in Kenosha and the people are like, why aren't the police officers doing this and why aren't they doing that? Yo, if I was a police officer right now, I would quit. And I'm going to tell you why I would quit. Because it doesn't matter what you do, you are going to be scrutinized and criticized to the highest. For example, I thought about this. Now, again, I want you to understand, this is not a commentary on what happened to Jacob Blake. Not a commentary on that per se. I'm putting myself in the shoes of the police officers. All right, I'm telling this guy to put his hands up. He's not putting his hands up. I'm telling this guy to stop. I don't know what to do. Maybe I should grab him. Remember what happened to those two officers in Atlanta. They grabbed the dude. They're wrestling with him. Dude took a taser. They shot him, and those guys are hung out to dry. So no, I don't want to do that. He's walking to his car. Man, this is getting dangerous. Sir, put up your hands. Stop, put up your hands. He's still not putting up his hands. Man, what am I going to do? He's opening his car. He's reaching for, I have no idea what he's reaching for. What do you do? Because it doesn't matter what you do. Now, anybody who's been in a situation where your adrenaline is just rushing, like a crazy situation where you have no idea how it's going to play out, you know when those moments happen, it is very hard to think through some things sometimes. And sometimes you're thinking through a million things at once, thinking about every scenario that could possibly play out. I'm not justifying what these guys did. What I'm saying is, let's play devil's advocate, right? Put yourself in that situation. Also, I also put myself in the shoes of Mr. Blake, right? And when I do that, it gets a little more confusing. And here's why. Just me thinking, common sense. Okay, so I know the narrative that I'm hearing. We're being hunted by cops. Okay, if we're being hunted by cops and I wasn't supposed to be here, I'm here. Whatever situation happened, like I said, this is not a commentary on what happened. This is just playing devil's advocate, trying to understand both sides. I know what's going on. The cops are telling me, from what I hear, they're telling me stop. They're telling me to put up my hands, and I'm not doing that. Just me thinking, how do I think that's going to play out? What do I expect to get from this? Yo, if I'm him, I'm thinking I'm getting ready to get shot. Now, maybe he could have been thinking because of what's going on, maybe the cops would be more apprehensive to shoot him and just let him go. But then again, so now I'm putting myself in the shoes of the police officers again. I've told this guy to stop. He pretty much pushed off me and my partner. We're trying to get him to stop. He already has a warrant out. He's not supposed to be here. He's going in his car. Is he reaching for something? I don't know. What do I do? What if he turns around and kills me? What if he stabs me? What if he shoots me? Does he have anything else? I don't know. What do you do? It's easy. It's easy for two things. It's easy for me to say what I would do if I was Mr. Blake. I'm not him. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what was going through his head. Maybe he was thinking he didn't want to go to jail. Maybe that's what fueled that. Maybe he was thinking they'll just let me get in my car and drive away. Maybe that's what he was thinking. I don't know. I have no idea. And then you also got to put yourself in the shoes of the police officers. You see, when you put yourself in somebody else's shoes, it makes the decision a lot harder than you think. You know how and why I'm beginning to learn this more and more? Because as I read my Bible, I used to read my Bible with so much piety, like I was something. Like I laugh now. Like what the heck did I think? Did I think I was some kind of like I was some dude that was so spiritual that I couldn't make a bad decision? Like now when I read my Bible, I'm like, yo, I probably would have done the same thing. Yep, I probably would have done this too. As crazy as a lot of things look in the Bible, right? Like we look at Peter when he denied the Lord and everybody's like, oh man, he denied the Lord 3 times. What would you have done? Knowing that they're getting ready to crucify the Lord Jesus Christ and they could possibly crucify you too if you admit to knowing him. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback and say, nah, man, I'd have done this and I'd have done that. When I put myself in Peter's shoes now, I'm looking and I'm like, I probably have done the same thing. When we look at situations, I think we need to start considering that 1, we don't know everything. 2, we have no idea what we would have done being put in a person's shoes. And now, mind you, when I say this, this is barring something that's just completely crazy egregious, right? We can look at a situation where somebody goes into a crowd, you know, like a suicide bomber or the guy that went into the church shooting up people. Yeah, I'm not going to do that, right? That's different. I'm not talking about situations like that, but I'm talking about decision-making situations where it's not as cut and dry as we think, especially involving both police officers and the people on the other side of that police activity, right? Whoever the police officer's dealing with. You got to think about both situations. And when you do that, it's not as easy as everyone thinks. Oh, I would have done this. Oh, I would have done that. Yo, I used to do that a lot. Even as of recently, I would do that a lot. The more I read my Bible, the more I look at situations and look at things going on, I'm starting to step back from that. Like, yeah, it's easy for me to judge from right here and say X, Y, or Z. It's a lot harder when you're the one in a situation. I know I didn't necessarily go over anything Bible per se. This was a little different. Hopefully we'll be back to our regularly scheduled program tomorrow. Y'all know what it is. Stay frosty, people.